welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about a few celebrities that brutally met their end far before they should have. If you think you've heard these stories before, come sit. I'll always put a new spin on it. I know I'm corny. Okay, on with the bougie telethon. This one, unfortunately, got weirder than it should have. 50 Cent, in an attempt to continue his beef with one of the principal players, actually ends up smearing the victim. There was also 10 pounds of weed involved. 10 pounds. Let me explain. Stephanie Mosley was born on February 14th, 1984 in Vancouver, British Columbia. And doesn't Canada have some of the most beautiful women on earth? It seems like the number of hot people in Canada is far higher than it should be, given their population. Just hot people everywhere in Canada. Good for them. This particular hot Canadian was not just hot, but super talented. I mean, wowzers. I can't do that. Stephanie started dancing at age 2 when she enrolled in ballet classes. She participated in dance competitions all throughout her youth, winning multiple awards as a teenager. And she was invited to perform at Disneyland in Tokyo, which would be pretty cool. Stephanie moved to Los Angeles in 2002. Her first friend in LA was Eva Marcille, who would go on to win America's Next Top Model. And I just love her, she's so cute. Eva said, quote, "We made a pact, and we decided we were going to figure this business out and become stars together," end quote. The two remained so close over the years, and according to reports, Marcille was asked to identify Stephanie's body after her death. Stephanie got her first big acting break when she was handpicked by Jamie Foxx to play his wife on his 2006 NBC special, Jamie Foxx, Unpredictable. In 2008, she married Earl Hayes, who was a rapper signed with Floyd Mayweather's Money Team. Stephanie continued to build her resume with guest appearances on Once Upon a Time and various roles in movies like Snow White, Sparkle, and Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 1. In 2010, Stephanie appeared on the CW's competitive college cheerleading show Hellcats with Ashley Tisdale. I loved that show. I did. I'm not gonna lie. I loved it. Way back in the day, when anybody still had cable. Within a few short years, Stephanie became one of the most sought-after dancers in the industry. She shared the stage with everyone from Britney Spears to Chris Brown and was a favorite among A-listers for her work ethic and her personality. She had danced in Beyonce's Run the World video and toured with Beyonce, oh my gosh, an experience that she says was unlike any other, and I can imagine. Stephanie had told VH1, quote, "Everybody works out, everybody's focused, everybody wants to do better, everybody wants to be harder. It's like this morale and this energy between all of us that is magical," end quote. Soon after, Stephanie channeled that drive and that ambition into the VH1 series Hit the Floor, in which she starred for 14 episodes. Okay, so Earl Hayes, who is not the son of legendary singer Isaac Hayes, as had been initially reported, and that was just the mainstream media nonsense trying to get the scoop. But to be fair, dude has 11 children, and it would be impossible to keep track of all of them. Okay, so Earl Hayes, no relation to Isaac Hayes, and the only reason why I'm even talking about this cartoon character is because I pretty much have to. He was just your average beta male whose insecurities and failures led to a world of pain for a lot of people. I said what I said. Stephanie's marriage to Earl Hayes was rocky. There was a lot of breaking up and getting back together. Mosley's family, who last spoke to her on December 3rd, 2014, said the couple was reconciling after having broken up a year ago. An unvetted and unverified source claims, quote, "He was always a controlling guy, but things were getting out of hand. Earl was paranoid that Stephanie was cheating on him and had threatened to kill himself in the past if she ever left him. She said she didn't want to hurt him, and now she's no longer with us," end quote. Yes, it was an unvetted and unverified insider, but I am always down to talk smack about a killer. Hayes, unhinged over some alleged infidelity by Stephanie with Trey Songz, shot Stephanie and then himself in the couple's apartment at the Palazzo East apartment complex around 7:30 a.m. on Monday, December 8th, 2014. Now, y'all know I love real estate. The complex is located at 348 Hauser Boulevard. So let's take a look. Now, these aren't photos of Stephanie's actual apartment, just photos of the complex's exterior and probably their model unit. A lot of beige, and I think I could do better with that kitchen, but still very swank. Rents started around $3,100 a month, oh my God. But qualified residents can move in with no security deposit. Nice. Early on the morning of December 8th, 2014, a resident at the apartment complex heard a woman screaming before, quote, at least 10 gunshots, end quote, were heard. The 600-unit complex was soon evacuated by police. A SWAT team tried to enter the apartment, and they made it inside until they encountered a locked bedroom door. When they tried to enter the door, they heard 2 final shots. Both were pronounced dead at the scene. The initial investigation suggested Hayes shot Moseley to death and then took his own life. Their bodies were found on the bathroom floor, reports LAPD homicide detective Scott Masterson. Following Moseley's tragic passing, there had been an outpouring of support. Jennifer Lopez told ET, quote, I knew Stephanie pretty well. She was one of my dancers for a while. It was a devastating thing, end quote. VH1 said in a statement, quote, we are incredibly saddened to hear the news of the passing of Stephanie Mosley. VH1 and the entire Hit the Floor family send our thoughts and condolences to her family and friends at this difficult time, end quote. Chris Brown wrote, quote, R.I.P. baby girl, danced with me on tour and was always the coolest person, end quote. Chris Brown also mentioned praying for Stephanie's and Hayes' family, and okay, yes, it's terrible for both families, but maybe make a separate tweet about Hayes, or none at all. I don't. I mean, Chris Brown of all people. Allison Holker, who co-starred with Stephanie on Hit the Floor, said, quote, today we bow our heads and send prayers to our special Stephanie and her beautiful family. Stephanie was a bright, inspiring, talented woman, and I am honored I could call her my friend, end quote. Ashley Tisdale, who danced with Stephanie on the CW's Hellcats, also remembered her co-star on Twitter. Quote, rest in peace, Stephanie Mosley. I'll always remember dancing with you on Hellcats. Such a beautiful, kind spirit. I'm praying for your family, end quote. Trey Songz wrote, quote, R.I.P. baby girl. Once an angel on earth, now watching over us from heaven. You'll be missed, but never forgotten, end quote. Later, police had reported that they had found 10 pounds of weed in the couple's home. Where did they keep it? Not in that kitchen. Unfortunately, not much more information on that is available, but that's a lot of weed. Probably not just for personal use. Now here it gets creepy. Before the apparent murder-suicide, Hayes had called Floyd Mayweather. The boxing champ witnessed the murder-suicide via FaceTime. Yikes. But later that night, Mayweather was spotted courtside at a Los Angeles Clippers game. I mean, that's cold. They were supposed to be friends. He hears what he hears and sees what he sees, and then he just goes to a basketball game? That's cold. Cold. But master of the dad bod and rapper 50 Cent has a different story about that FaceTime call. Apparently, 50 and Floyd Mayweather had some beef, and after a scathing post calling out 50 for being a, quote, certified snitch, end quote, stealing Ja Rule's rap style, and being a fake gangster, 50 clapped back at the boxing champ with some serious accusations. In an Instagram post, 50 claims Mayweather slept with Stephanie, which he claims resulted in Hayes killing both himself and Moseley. Hayes had definitely FaceTimed Mayweather, but it was insinuated that instead of being angry about the alleged infidelities with Trey Songz that had Hayes so furious, instead, Hayes was angry with Mayweather for having an affair with Stephanie. Sharing an Instagram photo of Mayweather, Hayes, and Moseley, Fitty writes, quote, "He beat 50 men, 11 women, and caused 2 bodies. Keep calling me and I'm on a show, champ," end quote. Fitty also wrote, "Tell everybody why you was on FaceTime when he killed Stephanie and himself." Fitty captioned a photo of Mayweather with the couple, quote, "Because he was confronting you about his wife. You was pumping all that Trey Songz. Get the out of here. You didn't give a He just went to watch the ball game," end quote. Which is true. He did. He went to go watch a ball game. I believe that's telling it like it is. Fitty even thanked Nelly for stealing Mayweather's girl. Now, of course, these are all allegations, but I don't know. Kind of makes sense. It had originally been reported that Mayweather was trying to talk Hayes off the ledge and calm him down, but it doesn't make sense. If that was the case, he wouldn't just turn around and go to a basketball game that same night. Mayweather had also shared a meme on Instagram with himself covered with a bunch of rats, calling Fitty a snitch. Quote, "The biggest rat sweepstakes. Post the most disrespectful comment you could possibly think of about the herpes-infected rat," Fitty sent, "for a chance to win $1,000, end quote. Both y'all wearing me out. And of all the now deleted Instagram posts and tweets, I can still find this one. Gross. And these are 2 grown men. 50 Cent is 50 years old. It's embarrassing. Burrell Wilkins, a friend of Hayes, who described himself as Hayes' mentor and life coach. Wait. No. Mentor and life coach? I would not be making those claims these days. But go on, Big B. Burrell, mentor and life coach Wilkes said that Hayes was on his way to the big time. He was a great entertainer, Wilkes told KTLA. He worked with the likes of Dr. Dre, Timbaland, Swizz Beatz, Alicia Keys. No one cares. And then he finished that quote with, "No one's seen this coming because, again, Hayes is not a violent guy." No, not violent at all. Of course not. Who is this guy and why is he here? Fighting back tears, Eva Marcel told Entertainment Tonight that she had taken Moseley under her wing when she got to LA. Quote, "I met Stephanie Mosley in 2002. She had just moved to LA. She was part of a dance group called Best Kept Secret. My cousin was doing her makeup and I thought she was the most gorgeous girl. Rest in peace, beautiful girl."
Stephanie was an absolute angel. She really was. Everybody she's ever met. She's brought so many of these people into my life. She's connected so many people together. And she's just loved. She will never, ever, ever, ever be forgotten.
I had to brush out my hair. It started to look like it was on its way to the 1980s to get married. But did I end up with a poor man's Britney Spears? I'm doing my best. This one is particularly sad for me. I was such a fan of her dad, but even though what happened was terrible and tragic and what happened in the courtroom just made things worse, I really think that Dominic Dunne found who he was and what he was supposed to be doing with his life after this tragedy. But I'm not here to talk about existentialism, thank God. Dominic Dunne was born on November 23rd, 1959 in Santa Monica, California. The daughter of Ellen Beatrice Griffin Dunne, she went by Lenny, I would have also, and Dominic Dunne. Lenny was a ranching heiress, and Dominic was a producer, writer, and an actor. Dominic began his career in film and television as the producer of the pioneering gay film The Boys in the Band. I have not seen that. Not yet. And as the producer of the award-winning drug film The Panic in Needle Park. I have not seen that one either. Maybe I should. He turned to writing in the early 1970s and was a best-selling novelist and Vanity Fair writer. Actually, he was Vanity Fair, but he was best known for chronicling the misdeeds of the rich and famous with a gleeful wickedness. So Dominique had a pretty posh and bougie upbringing. Actor Griffin Dunne is her brother. Griffin played werewolf victim Jack Goodman in An American Werewolf in London, which is an excellent movie. A++ would recommend.
Can I have a piece of toast?
Am I asleep now, awake, or what?
I realize I don't look so hot, David. But I thought you'd be glad to see me.
And he also plays Nicky Pearson on This Is Us. After graduating high school, Dominique went to the University of Colorado to study acting. 3 weeks after arriving in Hollywood, she landed her first gig, and other roles were soon to follow. Now, she is best known for playing Dana Freeling, the older daughter in the first Poltergeist movie, which I love. I love this movie. I saw that movie when I was a kid. It scared me to death, but I loved it. It was directed by Steven Spielberg, so this was a pretty plum role for her. And many critics believed that this role would be the first of many to come. Dominique was soon a staple in the young Hollywood social scene. Everyone who knew her loved her. Dominique seemed to have the world by the tail. Then, at a party in 1981, she met John Thomas Sweeney, a jelly-brained psychopath and also a chef at popular LA night spot Mame San. The two began dating and quickly moved in together at 8723 Rangeley in West Hollywood. More real estate? Let's go take a look. This is a beautiful home, and it's deceptively spacious as you look at it from outside. This home last sold for $2,085,000 in November 2019. Unfortunately, their beautiful surroundings couldn't save the relationship, which turned stormy. Sweeney was uncontrollably jealous and abusive. In fact, so abusive that when Dominique filmed her appearance on Hill Street Blues in 1981, just days after one of the beatings at the hands of Sweeney, in a tragic moment of art imitating life, she played the role of an abused victim, and the bruises that you see on her face were largely her own. Geez, that's a lot. I wonder if anybody said anything, asked her about it. I hope so. The episode aired just a few weeks after her death. Dominique finally had enough of that ish, and she ended the relationship. On October 30th, 1982, Sweeney went to her house where she and fellow actor David Packer were rehearsing a scene from the television miniseries V. Sweeney was going to try to reconcile with Dominique. Spoiler alert, she didn't want that. In fact, she didn't want to talk to him at all. She definitely didn't want him at her house, so she had stepped out on the porch to speak with him. And according to Packer, he heard a scream, a smack, and a thud. Packer tried to call police, but was stymied when he was told that Dunne's house was out of their jurisdiction. Now, this was back in the olden days, and I'm not sure when a 911 system was put in place in LA. This could have been a situation of,
"Operator, get me the police."
And the operator got the wrong department. He then phoned a friend and told him that if he ended up dead, John Thomas Sweeney was the killer. And that's scary. I hope I never have to make a phone call like that. So finally, he went out a back door to find Sweeney standing over Dominique's lifeless body in the driveway. And listen, I don't blame David Packer for his actions. Some people have called him a coward, but he had heard from Dominique the things that Sweeney had done to her. Dude was deranged, and sometimes running out into the middle of a thing isn't always the best thing to do. When the police finally came, Sweeney put his hands in the air and claimed that he tried to kill his girlfriend and then himself. He was booked on attempted murder charges, and Dominic Dunne was then taken to Cedars-Sinai Hospital, where she was immediately put on life support. It's a shame he didn't try to kill himself first, prior to trying to kill someone else. Dominique never regained consciousness, and she died on November 4th, 1982. She was only 22 years old, cutting short a potentially brilliant career and leaving behind devastated and angry loved ones. Strangulation is listed as the official cause of death, and her organs were harvested per her mother's request. The funeral was held at Westwood Catholic Church, and so many people attended. One person commented, quote, "What did they do? Call Universal Casting?" End quote. To which Dominique's friend Gloria Gifford commented, quote, "No, many people loved Dominique," end quote. Miguel Ferrer was one of the pallbearers. And y'all would know him as Bob Morton in the 1987 film RoboCop, if you're too young to remember that. He also played Vice President Rodriguez in Iron Man 3 and FBI agent Albert Rosenfield on Twin Peaks, among many others. You'll recognize his face. Carrie Fisher was there. George Clooney was a friend, and he was there. George had actually gone to acting school with Dominique. And some sad trivia, George Clooney was also deposed regarding Sweeney's stalking patterns. He was charged with attempted murder and assault. The charges were upgraded to murder after Dominique passed. We are having a legit raging blizzard outside. I don't know if you can hear it or not. And my dog is freaking out. I think he's a little nervous. It's windy, huh? Oh, I don't think this is helping. Say hi. You're the other one. Say hi, Yanni. Say hi, Yanni. Oh. There's my girl. Okay, you guys go love each other. Okay, go play. Okay, so back to that Cracker Jack box toy Sweeney. So cops show up, he confesses, open and shut, right? Nope. Sweeney went to trial in August of 1983. Judge Burton S. Katz presided over the case and reportedly had a, quote, kindly demeanor towards Sweeney, end quote. And the trial went bananas right from the beginning. Sweeney's ex-girlfriend, Lillian Pierce, who testified that Sweeney had essayed her, perforated her eardrum, broke her nose, and collapsed her lung, she recounted how Sweeney would foam at the mouth when he lost control. Oh my God. She had seen him smash furniture and pictures. He had even thrown rocks at her when she tried to leave him. Sweeney's attorney, Michael Adelson, went right after Lillian Pierce as if she were the one on trial. He accused her of being a drunk, being an addict, and, well, all things that are better than a cold-blooded killer, but go on. He even suggested that she had brought this violence on herself and she got what she deserved. It was gross, and it was a tactic he repeated when he attempted to besmirch Dominique's character. Now, Pierce had testified out of the presence of the jury, so Katz could decide whether or not to allow her as a witness. And while she was testifying, Sweeney became enraged. I mean, he just lost his damn mind. He jumped to his feet and he charged forward, as you do when you're on trial for murder. That man has demons, for real. He was restrained by 2 bailiffs and 4 armed guards, and then he cried when he returned to his chair, where he was then handcuffed. He apologized to Judge Katz, and Judge Katz not only accepted his apology, but he did so with a quote, "We know what strain you're under, Mr. Sweeney," end quote. Oh my God! Can we please not forget he wouldn't have been there had he not murdered someone? I mean, now I'm getting enraged. Let's start foaming at the mouth. A reporter from a local paper was in the courtroom and had wrote about what happened. At Adelson's request, Judge Katz would admonish this reporter for exaggerating the incident, and they probably didn't, and issued a gag order to all parties. Just issue a gag to Sweeney. You don't want none of that foaming at the mouth. At the end of all that, Judge Katz ended up not allowing Lillian Pierce's testimony to be heard by the jury, on the grounds that the testimony was prejudicial. I guess. The judge says you don't convict a person because they've done something bad in the past. Sure, he's right. Something completely unrelated and that doesn't speak to his propensity for DV, but whatever. It was an egregious error, in my opinion. It meant that the jury would not hear of Sweeney's violent history and his outbursts until after the trial. The judge also wouldn't allow Dominique's family and friends to testify to what they witnessed between Sweeney and Dominique, calling it hearsay. That's not hearsay. That is not hearsay. It's not. They witnessed it. That would be them doing the hearing, not the saying. I know what I'm talking about. That disallowed testimony of Dominique's family and friends would have included the frightening events of August 27, 1982. After a particularly bitter argument, Sweeney grabbed Dominique's long, beautiful hair and just yanked it so hard that handfuls of it just came out in clumps. A terrified Dominique raced to her mother's house, and Sweeney was right behind. He gets there, he bangs on all the doors and the windows, demanding to be let in. Oh, okay, let me just do that, pickle loaf. Lenny, Dominique's mom, threatened to call police, so Sweeney took off back to their West Hollywood home to wait out Dominique. And she returned a few days later. Then, not even a month after that, on September 26, 1982, another argument fired up, and Sweeney grabbed Dominique by the throat. He threw her to the floor and began strangling her. A friend who was staying with the couple at the time heard the assault, ran into the room where Dominique was being attacked. Dominique told her that Sweeney had just tried to kill her. And like any classic abuser, he denied it. He just suggested that she just come back to bed. She pretended to agree, but instead she snuck out the bathroom window. When he heard her car engine start up, he threw himself on the hood of the car, and he only jumped off when Dominique briefly stopped. Dude. She escaped again to her mother's house, where she called Sweeney and ended the relationship. Ended it permanently, forever and ever, amen. He moved out and she changed the locks when she moved back in. That should have been a clue for Sweeney just to let her go. Bless and release, you mollycoddled man-child. It's just a travesty that the jury didn't get to hear this testimony. And it's not hearsay anyway. Okay, back to that knob and his knobbier defense attorney and the knobbiest knob, the mayor of Knobtown, Judge Katz, because things are about to get a whole lot worse. On August 29th, 1983, defense attorney Adelson moved that Judge Katz rule that there was insufficient evidence to try Sweeney on the charge of first-degree murder, as there was no evidence of predetermination or of deliberation. And Katz, ever obliging of Sweeney in the defense, granted the motion, taking first-degree murder off the table so the jurors could only deliberate on manslaughter or second-degree murder. This decision, along with not allowing Lillian Pierce, Lenny Dunne, or Dominique's friends to testify, effectively dismantled the prosecution's entire case. Judge Katz would continue bending over backwards for the defense. He would continuously prove to be far more concerned with the murderer than the victim and her family. A judge should be impartial. I don't expect a judge to do favors for the defense or the prosecution. And Judge Katz went above and beyond ensuring that Sweeney had a fair trial. Even though he did say no to some of the more ridiculous requests by the defense, Judge Katz still went above and beyond. Oh, and this is crazy. Defense attorney Adelson wanted Lenny, who was suffering with multiple sclerosis and she was in a wheelchair, booted from the courtroom. Adelson felt that her presence in the courtroom with her wheelchair would elicit sympathy from the jury. Katz, surprisingly, did not agree. But Adelson did request and was granted by Judge Katz an order that any emotional outburst by the Dunne family, including crying, eye-rolling, or making any type of exclamation, would result in their being ejected from the courtroom. I wouldn't have lasted a second. I would have been eye-rolling and outbursting like it was my job, like I invented eye-rolling and outbursting. I am not only a member, but I am the founder of Eye Roll and Outburst Inc. One of her brothers, Alex, just had tears in his eyes, and Adelson just right in the middle of everything just jumped up and screamed, "Oh, he's crying, he's crying. Oh my God." And once, when the brothers changed seats while Sweeney was testifying in order to be in his line of sight, Adelson again pissily tried to get both of the brothers tossed right out of the courtroom. Everything about this trial was an insult and an outrage to Dominique and her family. Oh, and Judge Katz and Adelson also kept mispronouncing Dominique's name, and that's gross. That's just gross. It was like Adelson just hated the Dunnes for whatever reason. I mean, don't worry about them and handle your business. He'd basically already won when Judge Katz destroyed the prosecution's case. So settle down, Froggy. Sweeney testified in his own defense. Usually that's not a great idea, but in this case, why not? There wouldn't be much the prosecutor could ask him that wouldn't have been stricken by the judge unless Sweeney brought it up himself, and he wasn't going to do that. Sweeney testified that he only recalled standing over Dominique's body when the attack was over. Oh my gosh. He said he attempted to revive her by walking her around, but she fell. An attempt at CPR was made, oh my God, which he says made Dominique vomit, causing him to vomit. At that point, he said he then ran into the house and consumed 2 bottles of pills in an attempt to kill himself. A clearly less than successful venture. Then this flapjack goes down and lays down in the driveway next to Dominique. After pulling her tongue out of her throat. That's something that he said he had done for his epileptic father. Shut up. None of that happened. None of it. But Adelson claimed that these actions proved that Sweeney did not act with malice and had, in fact, acted in the heat of passion, provoked by Dominique. Lord, help us all. I want to punch that dude in the face. I'm not kidding. I mean, Jesus, take the wheel. Sweeney insisted he and Dominique were getting back together. He said he was there to simply reconcile. He said they were discussing moving back in together and possibly marriage and children. No. He claimed he felt duped when he arrived at Dominique's house, and he said, well, yeah, Dominique just changed her mind suddenly. Oh, yes, she did. She suddenly changed her mind when she curved your ass a month before you killed her, you dipstick. Like she would have agreed to have him over knowing how insanely jealous and controlling he was while she was in her home running lines with a male co-star. Okay. Dominique's family insisted that their breakup was permanent and that Sweeney killed Dominique over his refusal to accept that the relationship was over. And I know which one sounds more likely to me. The police also disputed Sweeney's version of events, as there was no evidence that he had consumed any pills, and they found him to be relatively calm and collected. I mean, considering. The first officer at the scene recalled Sweeney telling him, quote, "Man, I blew it. I killed her. I didn't think I choked her that hard, but I don't know. I just kept choking her. I just lost my temper, and I blew it again." End quote. Oh, God. I wonder how many bodies that dude has on him. Blew it again? To further dispute Sweeney's testimony, and in direct contradiction to his claim of heat of passion, the medical examiner testified that Dominique had been strangled for between 4 to 6 minutes. More than enough time for Sweeney to find himself and his chill, and plenty of time for him to look into her eyes as he killed her. I cannot, for the life of me, other than incompetence or vengeance for some probably imagined slight by the prosecutor or the Dunne family, figure out why the judge did not allow the jury to consider first-degree murder. If it takes you between 4 and 6 minutes to kill somebody, that's plenty of time for cool reflection. You don't have to plan a thing forever for it to be premeditated. I set a timer for just 4 minutes and just waited for the time to pass. It's a long time. I coolly reflected on a lot of things. It would be a horribly long time to spend in agony, trying in vain for just one gasp of air. Judge Katz, you are a 2x4 to the bicycle spokes of justice. The jury ultimately only found John Thomas Sweeney guilty of the lesser charge of voluntary manslaughter, which carried a maximum of 6.5 years in prison. And amazingly, during sentencing, Judge Katz, in a mind-altering act of backpedaling, actually criticized the jury for handing down a verdict that he beautifully gift-wrapped and put on a silver platter for them, stating that Dominique's death was, quote, "a case pure and simple of murder with malice," end quote. I can't. I just can't. The jury foreman would say that Katz's comment was a cheap shot, and it was, and that if the jury had heard all the evidence, all the evidence that Judge Katz himself would not permit to be heard, they would have convicted Sweeney of murder. Not manslaughter, but murder. 5 minutes before handing down his sentence to Sweeney, Judge Katz sentenced a man who had committed a nonviolent robbery at a flower shop to 5 years. The poor Dunne family. And so life went on for the principal players, all except for Dominique. After serving only 2.5 years in prison, John Thomas Sweeney was set free. He was hired as an executive chef for a restaurant called The Chronicle in Los Angeles, as if nothing ever happened. Dominique's mother set up a support group called Justice for Victims of Homicide. On the nights that Sweeney worked, Dominique's brother Griffin and other friends and group members would hand out flyers in front of the restaurant that read, quote, "The hands that will prepare your meal tonight also murdered Dominic Dunne," end quote. Sweeney couldn't hack the pressure and moved away from Los Angeles. Following the many and damning criticisms on how he handled Dominique's case, and being voted the 4th worst judge to sit on the bench in Los Angeles, Burton S. Katz was transferred to juvenile court in Sylmar. He had the audacity to write a book about the problems with the justice system. It's got terrible reviews on Amazon. He also became a commentator and writer for MSNBC and Time Warner. Figures. As of this date, he is retired from the bench but provides arbitration and mediation services. I wouldn't hire him though. Detective Harold Johnston, the man who had driven to Lenny's house to notify her that Dominique was at Cedars-Sinai and was near death, and who had tracked down Sweeney's former girlfriend, Lillian Pierce, a veteran of law enforcement for over 25 years, had told Dominic Dunne that he had fervently believed in the justice system his entire career, until Dominique's case. That had caused him to lose his faith in the system. Dominic Dunne returned to his home in New York City after the trial. While in LA and attending the trial, he drove around town in his daughter's electric blue convertible VW Bug. He later recalled keeping a pair of her sunglasses in his pocket during the trial to give him strength. He continued his writing career and wrote a heartbreaking piece for Vanity Fair describing the emotional stranglehold his daughter's murder and resulting trial had on his family. He also wrote best-selling novels based in part on what happened to Dominique, the 1975 Martha Moseley murder in Greenwich, Connecticut, and the O.J. Simpson case in LA. I'll put a link to the Vanity Fair article in the description. It's an absolute must-read. In the mid-90s, Dunne was contacted by a Florida doctor who, after reading Dunne's article on his daughter's murder in Vanity Fair, was worried that his own daughter was engaged to Dominique's killer. Yikes. His name was John Sweeney. He was a chef, and it did turn out that he was the same man who murdered Dominique's daughter. Griffin Dunne contacted the doctor's daughter to try to convince her to call off the engagement and get away from Sweeney. Sweeney accused the Dunnes of harassment and changed his name to John Mara. A Reddit group subsequently revealed that as of 2014, he was living in Northern California and working at Smith Ranch Homes Retirement Community in San Rafael in the dining services department. Ooh, how the mighty have fallen. He's making pureed green beans now. After sentencing, Judge Burton Katz thanked the jury on behalf of both families. Dominic Dunne stood up and shouted, quote, "Don't thank them for our family. You withheld important information from the jury," end quote. Dominic claims credit for destroying the judge's career, and I have just a short little clip of an interview Dominic Dunne had done, and you have to see it because the tail end of it is just so Dominic Dunne.
When I wrote that article, I understood for the first time that I had power. Because that judge, I blame him for everything that went wrong in that ridiculous trial, where a man who strangled a young woman for 5 minutes until she was dead got 2.5 years in prison, slap on the hand. You see, I went after him in a way in that article, so that within a year he went from the Superior Court to Children's Court to Traffic Court to no court. And you know, I have to tell you, it sounds mean. I felt good.
It doesn't sound mean. It's a small measure of revenge. Small, but it's something.
And I did run into him as a, he then, I ran into him years later at the O.J. Simpson trial. And
what was he doing there?
He was a reporter for the Malibu Times. Have you ever heard of that paper? No, I never have.
Dominic Dunne was a cool guy. I liked him a lot. Sadly, he passed away in 2009 at the age of 83. Before his daughter's death, he had been known for good gossip and better parties. He had a 1970s appetite for drugs and booze until his life crashed and burned and brought the curtain down on all that. The worst thing that could ever happen to a father happened to Dominic Dunne, and it had influenced absolutely everything that he had done in his life since. As awful as it was, it's almost as if the tragedy of his daughter's death provided a moral purpose to an existence that might otherwise have had none. All that salty gossip of the rich and famous he was so well known for was being put to good use. The difference in Dunne post-Sweeney was that all that gossip then focused in on the rich folk who got caught in the privileged pastime that life had so cruelly introduced him to, getting away with murder. He covered the Lana Clarkson, Phil Spector case extensively, and to be honest, if it hadn't been for Dunne, a lot of people wouldn't have seen Lana as a real, actual human being. Robert Evans, former head of production at Paramount, said of Dunne, quote, "His story is remarkable. It's stranger than fiction. I call him an above-the-line star because Dominic Dunne, whether it be a novel, a biography, or crime reporting, his name, it's a must-see, a must-read, or a must-hear. And he's become the master of the written word," end quote. Dominic Dunne was the authority on the O.J. Simpson saga. He appeared on many panels on news talk shows representing murder victims and their families. Actually, during the O.J. Simpson trial, you'd often see him standing close by and being very supportive of the Brown and Goldman families. Another frequent guest panelist and supposed O.J. expert was former California Judge Burton S. Katz. Katz often criticized Judge Ito for not allowing evidence of O.J.'s previous DV incidents to be heard by the jury. I mean, the absolute irony of it. One day their paths crossed on an intended session of O.J. Talk on Larry King Live. Dunne graciously told King's production coordinators, "Thanks, but no thanks." He said he'd come back another night. Instead, it was Katz who was sent home. Probably in full makeup, too. Good for those production coordinators. That's as moral as it gets in Hollywood.
In 1982, I had 3 kids. I had 2 boys, and I had a daughter called Dominique. And Dominique was, my only daughter. I worshipped her. She became an actress, and almost instantly, Steven Spielberg cast her in Poltergeist. There was a restaurant called Ma Maison, a big, famous Hollywood restaurant. And the chef there, they had a romance. Yeah. And he stalked her, and he killed her. He killed her. And it was something that just changed the lives of all of us in my family, my wife, my 2 boys, me.
Did you know the guy before this happened? Had you met him?
Oh, yeah. Met him, and none of us liked him. There was something creepy about this guy, but women liked him. Just everything in my life changed. Things that have been important to me once weren't important to me anymore. Things that, everything changes. Everything, it's just such a jarring thing. We all got, I was divorced, and my wife and I were closer than we were at the most intimate part of our marriage.
If you made it this far, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please like and subscribe. And remember, be cool to others and be cool to yourself, because I care about what happens to you. Bye.